first $1 million gate since the famous Dempsey County Long Count battle in Chicago 8 years before. Everyone stunned by the fury of Lewis's attack. First $1 million gate since the famous Dempsey County Long Count battle in Chicago 8 years before. Everyone stunned by the fury of Lewis's attack.
Gets to the ropes. Marciano decides to try some uppercuts. Watch. Off the ropes and counter with his own right.
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. Now, as usual, before I get started, let me give a shout out to the JBT community. It's just boxing talk. We're a group of people who just love to talk boxing. And you don't have to have a podcast. The only requirement is you just have to love to talk boxing. That's all. Miss Cass, hashtag JBT, Al Booger, Mike Mazik, Real Prison Talk with Tommy. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, the Box Historian. Today, the most memorable fights and best fighters of every decade of the past century. And you know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Historian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. How's everyone? It's the Hump Day edition of Cass Sports, the Box Historian. Yeah, we're going to go through every decade. We're going to go all the way back to the 1880s and bring you the most dominant fighter of every decade. And the fights, you know, it's significant. It's the most memorable, not the best, you know, because like for the 60s, we got Ali Liston. Now that wasn't the best fight of the decade, but it was the most memorable because of the Phantom Punch, remember? You know, it didn't even last an entire round, so it definitely wasn't the best fight. But the Phantom Punch makes it remembered. You know, nobody in there saw the punch. Nobody on the front row. Ali and Liston didn't see it. Liston just went down. So that's the most memorable fight of the 60s. And we got one for each decade in the past century. Everybody say. To the fights. Where we got Jaime Munguia. No, not Jaime. Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu back in the ring this weekend. This is his first fight since he had that bloodbath with Fundora earlier this year. And remember, he was trying to fight Virgil Ortiz in August, but I knew that was too soon, you know, because he lost a lot of blood. I really thought that fight should have been stopped, you know. Fundora did a lot of bleed. That was just a bloodbath in that fight, but Fundora got the win. But Tim is finally back in there this weekend. Yep. And then next weekend, we got a pretty good one. We got to wait a week for that one. That's Regis and Jack Catterall. You know, don't count Jack Catterall out of that because he's a crafty. I think that would like the perfect name for him. He's a crafty fighter, right? Finds ways to win. Jack does so. And Regis, you know, this is his first fight since he lost his titles to Devin Haney. Yep. So that's next weekend. But yeah, the boxing schedule is looking good. This week been like because Monday we had the top let me see if I can remember what happened Monday. Oh man, it's right here in front of me. We had the top fighters from each wow. Let me see, what was Monday? Okay, yeah, Monday was the top fighters of the 80s and the top fights of the 80s, remember? Then yesterday we had, this is the week of lists, because yesterday was the fighters with the most wins. I had 16 fighters with wins in 4 more divisions, right? And then we had the some of the worst fighters of all time, you know, fighters with the most losses. The record for losses is 275. This guy won 12 and lost 275, right? Then we had a guy that won 2 and lost 53. Salute Melanin Queen 27. How are you today? Always good to see you. But we had a guy that won 2 and lost 27. And he won his first fight. Then he went like 9 years before he won his second one. And then when he won his second fight, he started talking trash. He said he was ready to go to the top. He was 2 and 53. He said he's ready to go to the top of the division now. You know, he got that second win up under his belt. Yeah, that was yesterday. But today, it's going to be the most dominant fighter in every decade this century. We're going to start in the 1880s. Last century, really. From the 1880s all the way up to the present, right? The most dominant fighter every decade. That's like, 11 decades? And then we're going to have the most memorable fights of each decade since the beginning of the 19th century. And remember, memorable is not best. It's just something happened in the fights that make us remember it from each of those decades. That's what we're going to do today. And I appreciate everybody rocking with me. Melanie Queen 27's here. All the prizes have been taken. I think Michael Garner should get his today. I just got Cut Creator's address yesterday, but he should get his. He may get it by the end of the week. He's in, I'm not going to tell you where. I'm not going to say what state, but he should get it by Friday. But the raffle is now history. It's not history until the people actually get their prizes, though. So it's still not complete yet. We waiting for some confirmation from Michael Garner. It said the 16th, and put the order number in. It said delivered, so that means he's got it right, delivered. But we still don't have any confirmation yet. But the raffle isn't over until Cut Creator gets his. Rodney Cut Creator. I know his first name is Rodney. I forgot his last name. But it won't be over until he gets his prize. Hopefully it'll be by Friday. And then we're on to the next one. They said the next one is going to be cash money, man. So I'm going to step away from the JBT for a few months and win that cash, and then I'll get back in. Yeah, I love cash. That's the best kind of prize present anything, because you can go out and buy what you want. Instead of giving a person a present, give them cash. They can buy what they want and put some money in their pocket, you know? Give me $100, I go buy something for $10 and put $90 in my pocket, right? Instead of buying me $100 present, right? Give me the $100. Mm-hmm. I might spend about $12 on the present, put $88 in my pocket. But how's everybody today? We got a good show going on for you. We're going to start at 2:30. Every time I say 2:30, it make me think of Lonnie Lee. That's why I used to start at 2:30, because he got off at 2:30, but I think he gets off later now. But since I said I start at 2:30, a few people have started arriving at 2:30. Watch, right about 2:25, 2:30. A few names gonna come in. So I'll wait. You know, I always try to take the show from 2:30 to 3:30, and then we get some link time for that last half hour. Yeah. But yeah, Banky and Jay was on Boxing Talk with Banky and Joe, a fire show. They ended up like 5 or 6 episodes. I was over there. They still arguing about Better Be Ab and Bivol. Yeah, it's in the history books. It was a great fight. No matter who you think won, the one that counts is who the judges think won, and the judges said it was Better Be Ab, so that's what it is. Better Be Ab is the first 4-belt champion. First undisputed champion in the 4-belt era is Arthur Beterbiev. Yep. Trump in the building. What's up, Trump? And Cannabis Education and Entertainment TV in the building. Salute. 2 big-time boxing guys just arrived. Trump and Cannabis Education and Entertainment TV. Yeah, we got the most dominant fighter from every decade, going back to 1880 up to the 2000s today, gentlemen. And we got the most memorable fights of each decade from the 1900s up to the 2000s, okay? Not, like I was saying, not the best fight, the most memorable. And I used the 60s Ali listing 2 as an example. Now, that definitely wasn't the best fight of the 60s. It didn't even last around, but it was the most memorable because of that phantom punch. Nobody saw it, right? Goose Gas's father was there. He probably didn't see it either. You know, nobody in there saw the punch, right? That's why they call it the phantom punch fight. Yeah. But we're going to be talking. That's going to be the most memorable fight from the 60s. And we got one from each decade. You know, there's something went on in it that it makes it remembered. Stands out for that decade. And remember, not the best fight of each decade, but most memorable. I don't know why I had so much trouble saying that. Memorable. I got to say it slow. That's a tongue twister. Memorable. I said memorable. But yeah, appreciate everybody. How is everybody today? It's hump day. If you're working, it's all downhill from here. Y'all know I don't have a job. So yeah, every day is hump day. But yeah. And tomorrow is boxing in the States, Maryland, right? My state. We're gonna do a little history of boxing in Maryland. And some other significant events that happened in the state concerning boxing. And then of course the segment, the boxers from Maryland. We had a good one last week. It was Maine. And had a guy that was from Maine, right? Damn. I can't think of his name. I just had it. I was practicing saying this before the show. The Tavern from Maine was in here. Yeah, and that was a big assist to me because he was full of information. That was a very good one last Thursday. Yep, the Tavern. He was right there from the town where Lewiston, Maine, where Ali and Liston fought that fight where the Phantom Punch happened at, the one we're going to talk about from the 60s. Yeah, the Tavern was, he said he was right there at the place. He could reach out and touch the place as we were doing the show where the fight was at. Yeah, in Lewiston, Maine. And then I was talking about one of the big time guy trainer that runs a gym up there. And he said that's a personal friend of his. So that was very good. And Maryland, I'm from Maryland, so yeah. And then we got Sugar Ray Leonard. Well, Sugar Ray Leonard was born in North Carolina, but he was living in Maryland when his boxing career played out, you know. Just like Thomas Hearns, he was born in Tennessee, but we all know him from that Kronk Gym in Detroit, you know. So yeah, we do Michigan. I think Michigan is probably next. Thomas Hearns would be one of the boxers from Michigan, not Tennessee. Even though he was born in Tennessee, but his career played out from Michigan, right? Yeah, that's how we do that. Sugar Ray Robinson was born in Georgia. But I think he was in New York and Michigan during his career. Yeah, but I mentioned him from all three. You know, Sugar Ray. It's cold out there today, too. I still go out and do my walk every day. Try to do it twice a day. The morning walk and the evening walk. Now, I can do twice. Used to best just be the evening. But now it's morning and evening. Just Do Boxing in the building. What's up, Just Do? Coming up at 4 p.m. Some fire boxing talk today. Salute Just Do Boxing in the building. Yeah, we're gonna get started in about 5 minutes. Don't have the commercial to play no more to kill some time because the raffle is over. But we got another one coming up. This one is gonna be cash money. That's what I hear from the big wigs of the JBT. I always tell you, I'm small potatoes. I gotta wait and see what the big wigs say. But yeah, I heard the next one gonna be cash. So I said, I'm getting out of the JBT for a couple months and getting in that raffle. And after I win the cash, then I'll get on back in, you know. They're gonna have to find somebody to be the treasurer for a while. I'm out winning the cash. I nominate Melanin Queen. Sorry, Melanin Queen. But you're just so good at everything, you know. That's what happens to you, Melanin Queen. Yeah, I nominate Melanin Queen for the treasurer while I'm out there winning the money in the next raffle. Yeah. But yeah, we got Michael Garner should get his, it said delivered. So he probably got his Apple Tennis Generation iPad and Cut Creators is on the way because, like I said, the raffle isn't over until everybody receives their prizes. So we are waiting on Cut Creator to give us some confirmation that he got his. Just went yesterday, so. And yeah, he might, I don't know, could be tomorrow because it comes from a store. He's not in the same state where I'm at, but they would send the order from a store where it wouldn't go from Maryland all the way to his state. It'd come from a store down there, from a Walmart in his state. So, shouldn't take long at all. But the next one is cash, man. Everybody loves cash. That'll probably be the big one. Yeah. But yeah, and then if we get to the most dominant fighters and most memorable fights, I got one more thing to do today, and it's going to be the 10 gutsiest performances of all time in boxing. The 10 gutsiest performances of all time. Like, that first fight between Marquez and Pacquiao. Marquez got knocked down 3 times, but he got up and earned the draw. I thought he won it, right? But he got up and fought his way to a draw after getting knocked down 3 times by Manny Pacquiao, the great Manny Pacquiao. So we got 10 of the most gutsiest performances of all time. We should get to it. Maybe I should start. Of course, Ward and Gaddy, all 4 of them was gutsy from both fighters. Ward told Gaddy after one fight that now I know what it is to fight myself. After he fought Gaddy, that's what he told him. I know what it feels like to fight myself, but both of them had no backup, no give up. Those were wars. Yeah, and I think one makes the list. All 4 of those could have been gutsy performances, though. Those fights were just crazy. Fan-friendly. Very fan-friendly. Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. Yeah. R.I.P. to Arturo Gatti. Okay. Oh, he did, Melanie Queen? I thought he was. Yeah, I remember. I thought he had said that. Yeah. Yeah. So he gave you my headphones. All right. Congratulations, Melanie Queen. Enjoy it. Yeah. That was nice. Yeah, I think Senior hand delivered the headphones, because we all right here in Baltimore. And he won also the Apple 10th generation iPad. I put the order number in this morning. It said delivered. It didn't say on the way. It said delivered, like been to your door and dropped it off. But he's supposed to give us some kind of confirmation that he got it. And Cut Creators is on the way now. Should have left the store yesterday or today or this morning. So, because like I said, the raffle is not over until everybody gets their prizes. Then that's the end of it. But it'll be over this week. Yeah. Okay, let's get ready to go with today's show. The most memorable fights and most dominant fighters of every decade in the past century. We're going to do the fighters first this time, because we did the fights Monday when we did the 80s. We're going to do the fighters. Some of the same people are going to get talked about. That 80s was fire. I don't know how I got way back there. Oh, man. Oh, I was looking for what happened Monday. That's how I was on Monday. Today is Wednesday. I need some of them fancy gadgets where you don't have to write your notes. You just type them in the stuff. Or use your recorder, They had a guy at work that would do that. He didn't take notes. He just spoke into some kind of recorder, had everything right there. But I'm old fashioned. I write them down. I done went through like 20 notebooks since I started this channel. Almost time for another one. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started with today's show. Yesterday was yesterday was pretty good too, because Got a lot of views afterwards. I get most of my views afterwards. People go back. When people view it afterwards, for some reason, they don't hit the like button. You had like 200 views, but the likes will still be the same as they were when the live show ended. How come when people look at it later, they don't hit the like button? I don't understand that. Hit the like. Hit one of them. Hit the other one going down. It all matters. Yeah, that was fast. Wasn't it, Melon Queen? Just did it Monday. And it was like Monday evening at 4:00 after the show, remember? Yeah. Wasn't even 2 complete days. So hopefully cut creators will be Rodney's will be just as fast, so we can close this thing out by Friday. Shut this one down by Friday. Okay, the most dominant boxer of every decade. We're going to do the fighters first. Okay. Everything says 2:30. The phones, the laptop. Ooh, man, I got to charge that phone up. Okay. Now, the most dominant boxer of every decade. We went back to 1880. Okay. Way back. Okay. Now, there are many criteria that can be considered when compiling lists of greatest fighters, right? And all of them have wonderful potential for provoking argument and debate. Now, ranking pound for pound boxers from different eras against one another is always problematic. Yeah, I do that every week. Considering the vastly different conditions under which fighters in different eras competed. But ranking fighters against each other from within the same decade creates a slightly clearer picture. But even then, certain fighters have a distinct advantage given the way their careers arbitrarily line up with the start of a decade. Now, a fighter whose best years run from the second half of one decade into the early part of the next doesn't have the same resume to consider when making fighter of the decade decisions. But still, every fighter on this list could realistically be included within somebody's all-time top 10 ranking. Every one of them could be all-time top 10. We started in the 1880s, okay? John L. Sullivan, best fighter of the 1880s. There's John L. Now, John L. was the last bare knuckles champion, and he was the first champion when they started wearing gloves. Yep. When they started wearing gloves, John L. just picked up where he left off at. John L. Sullivan. Now, the 1880s could fairly be called the John L. Sullivan decade. Not just in boxing, but in American popular culture in general. Aside from Wild West legends like Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid, nobody came close to capturing the public's imagination the way that the brash and boisterous Boston Strong Boy did, what they called him, the Boston Strong Boy. Now, according to Nat Flasher's The Heavyweight Championship, John L. Sullivan captured the bare knuckle heavyweight world title in February 1882 when he starched the gigantic Paddy Ryan. Then, in July 1889, he won the last bare knuckle championship fight in history. Until now, they got a new bare, but this is the old days. He won the last bare knuckle championship fight when he outlasted Jake Kilrain in 75 rounds. Remember that one? Talked about that one. That was down in Mississippi. But throughout 75 rounds. But throughout the decade of the 1880s, Sullivan popularized the use of boxing gloves, paving the way for the sport to transition to its current legally accepted format. Sullivan entertained fans as much outside the ring as he did in it. His carousing was as legendary as his fighting, and both were covered in every detail by the National Police Gazette, that was the boxing magazine of the day, and tabloids of the era. The ultimate salt of the earth hero, the great John L. Sullivan, was as comfortable hobnobbing with royalty as he was tossing down shots and beers at a working man's pub. John L. Sullivan from the 1880s. Okay. Now, the 1890s, Fitz Simmons. And remember, yesterday we was talking about Roy Jones as one of the champions in 4 more weight classes. Remember, I said Roy Jones was the second man to win titles both at middleweight, from middleweight to heavyweight. This was the first one right here, Bob Fitz Simmons. He was the best boxer of the 1890s. That's him on the left. I think that might be Thomas Mullino on the right. It was the glove era, but look at those little gloves. What are they, like 2 ounces? Wow. Might as well be bare knuckles. Yeah. But yeah, Bob Fitz Simmons, 1890s. Okay. Now, Bob Fitz Simmons is the smallest man to ever hold a heavyweight title. And prior to Roy Jones Jr., he was the only former middleweight champion to ever move up and capture the heavyweight title. Yep. Him and Roy Jones is the only ones to ever do it. He was born in Cornwall, England, and raised in New Zealand. Fitz Simmons was a blacksmith by trade, and no doubt, pounding iron with a hammer for long hours accounted for some of his ferocious punching power. Yeah, of course, he had been a blacksmith. But pop like Fitz Simmons had can't be developed by any training methods. It can only be handed down by the boxing gods. Yeah, like the guy we saw last weekend, Beterbiev. Like, you know, in football, they always say you can't teach speed. Well, in boxing, you can't teach power, man. That's got to be God-given. You can't teach power. Now, few fighters Fitz Simmons' size have ever had a more powerful punch because he was smallish. He captured the world middleweight title in 1891 when he demolished Jack Dempsey, who had been regarded as a dominant champion. This is not the same Jack Dempsey from the 20s. This is a different one. This was the middleweight Jack Dempsey from the 1890s. Same name, but different person. Fitz Simmons then proceeded to go undefeated for most of the rest of the decade of the 1880s. Usually, while 1897, he knocked out Jim Corbett to become the 3rd world heavyweight champion of the glove era. So it was one in between him and John L. Sullivan. I don't know who that was. He was finally stopped in June 1899 by Jim Jeffries, an athletic bear of a man who outweighed Bob Fitz Simmons by 40 pounds. In November 1903, at 40 years old, Fitz Simmons beat George Gardner to capture the light heavyweight championship to become the first 3-division world champion in boxing history. Bob Fitz Simmons. Okay, let's move into the 1900s. Let's move up into the 1900s now. Okay, and the best boxer of from 1900 to 1909, the old master, Joe Gans. He'll be a part of tomorrow's show too, because he's from Baltimore, Maryland. You know, boxing in the States, Maryland. Yeah, Joe Gans. We'll talk about him again. Okay. Might use this same thing. But yeah, Joe Gans from Baltimore, Maryland. My homeboy. Now, Joe Gans was the first African-American to win a world title in boxing. Now, he wasn't the first black person. That was George Dixon, but he was Canadian. But Joe Gans was the first African-American to win a world title in boxing. From 1902 to 1908, he reigned as lightweight champion of the world. But throughout the decade, he routinely fought and beat much larger men. Yeah. His professional record is listed on BoxRec.com. Now, this is not official because back then, some of the fights didn't even get recorded, but BoxRec has him as 145 wins, 10 losses, and 16 draws. What's that, like 171? What about the 155? Yeah, 171 fights. But he had much more than that because some of them didn't even get recorded, okay? But that is an incomplete accounting of his professional accomplishment. The records for the early 20th century are impossible to document with precision, okay? Now, fighters like Gans often fought several times, not a month, fought several times a week, and even multiple times in the same day. Due to the tenuous legal status of boxing in this era, fights were usually presented as exhibitions, with newspaper decisions printed the next day. Yeah, no decision era, with no judges, no limit to rounds, no limit to the amount of rounds, the time of a round, and then a newspaper decision. Some newspaper guys at ringside would print a decision in the newspaper the next day. Now, the situation is further clouded due to unscrupulous sports editors sometimes publishing inaccurate results of the behest of shady promoters. Yeah, they had them back then too. But newspaper records of the era also make clear how dominant the old Joe Gans truly was. He was known as the old master. He was routinely described as the elite fighter of the time. Boxing historian Monty D. Cox has an impressive catalog of contemporary praise for Gans on his website, right? Joe Gans, the old master, 1900 to 1909. Okay. Jarrell Hattie. Salute, Jarrell. Good to see you today. Appreciate you stopping by today, Jarrell Hattie. Yeah, we're just going over right now some of the most dominant boxers from each decade, from 1880 up to 2000s. I think I went from the 2000 to the present. But let's continue. We'll get to it. Okay, we are at 1910 to 1919 with Jimmy Wald. He was a bad man, Jimmy Wald. Here's Jimmy Wald. Now, over 90 years, 100 years after he retired from over 90 years after he retired from the sport, Jimmy Wald is still regarded by many boxing historians as the greatest flyweight of all time. He was 5'2", 108 pounds, Welshman, known as the Mighty Atom, also ranks among the sport's top pound-for-pound punchers, right? For that flyweight. Okay, 112. In 2003, the Ring magazine ranked Wald pound for pound the third greatest puncher of all time. Okay, 112. From the time of his professional debut in 1911 until the end of 1919, Jimmy Wald compiled an official record of 124 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 94 knockouts. For his career, his official record was 134 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw with 99 knockouts. Okay, 139 fights, only lost 4, so he was hard to beat. But he probably had many more fights than that. It's just like Joe Gans. He started around 1911. A lot of fights didn't get recorded, because like they said, sometimes they was fighting 2 times a day. It's hard to keep up with that. Man had 2 fights in one day. He might fight 10 times in 1 week, and only like 4 or 5 of them might get recorded, right? And considering the era he fought in, it's a certainty that he fought many more fights that went unrecorded, okay? Now, like all the greats of his era, he fought and knocked out much larger men on a regular basis. In boxing historian Monty Cox's excellent online biography of Wald, heavyweight champion Gene Tunney is quoted as calling Wald the greatest fighter I ever saw. Jimmy Wald. Okay? Now here's our profile from Friday, 1920 to 1929. Harry Grab. There's Harry. Damn, him and Jimmy dressed just alike. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, it's Jimmy. It must have been a thing from that era. There's Harry. BN Boxing News in the building. What's up, BN Boxing News? Good to see you today, bro. Yeah, we are going over today. The most dominant boxer from every decade started in 1880. You didn't miss much because we only up to the 20s. Yeah, Harry Grab. We talked about Harry Friday, remember? But salute BN Boxing News. Okay, Harry Grab, 1920 to 1929. That's him up there on the screen. Now, Harry Grab established himself as perhaps the greatest middleweight in boxing history during the 1920s. The only fellow middleweight he lost to during the decade was Tiger Flowers. And that fight came, he lost his last two fights to Flowers after he fought nearly 300 times as a professional, right? And he has suffered serious retinal damage. Remember I told you about how he was blind in one eye. But the way he got through the examination, remember, he could see out of his left eye. And he always would get the left eye done first. I don't know how he managed that. But when the doctor told him to read the chart with the left eye, he memorized the entire chart. So when he covered the left eye, he couldn't see out the right eye, and the doctor said, read line 5. He already had it memorized from his left eye. But he fought many fights, blind in one eye. That's ingenious, right? Now, aside from Flowers, the only fighter Grab lost to during the decade were like heavyweights and heavyweights. He fought bigger men with regularity and nearly always won. He's the only man to ever beat Gene Tunney. Yep, he kept Gene Tunney from matching Rocky, going undefeated. Now, Gene Tunney never lost at heavyweight, but he had that one loss to Grab at light heavyweight, so he had one blemish on his record. Couldn't be up there with Rocky. Now, Grab's record during the decade nearly defies comprehension. In 1925, he fought 25 times and lost only to Tunney. That ain't nothing. In 1919, in the previous decade, he fought 45 times and didn't lose none. 45-0. That's the record for a year. That will never be broken. Nobody nowadays hardly ever fights 45 times in their entire career. And Harry Grab did it in 1 year and won all of them. He was known as the Pittsburgh Windmill. He was an explosive ball of energy inside the ring and a legendary carouser outside of it. Grab's near mythical status is enhanced by the fact that almost no known footage exists of him in the ring. Only footage of him was when he fought Gene Tunney in those two fights. You know, because of Gene Tunney. That's where the footage came from. And yeah, he was the legendary partier. The day he fought Mickey Walker, they had the rematch in the bar that night, later on that night in a bar, right? They got the arguing over because it was a very close fight. I think Mickey Walker won. No, Grab won it, but they got the arguing in the bar that night about who won it and fought again at the bar. Yep. 1930 to 1939, the legendary. Now what happened there? Sorry about that. The legendary Henry Armstrong. What he did, what he accomplished was just incredible. Henry Armstrong. Unbelievable, man. Just unfreaking believable. But let's talk about it. 1930 to 1939. Homicide Hank. Now, according to BoxRec.com records, Henry Armstrong lost his first professional fight to Al Ovino in July 1931. And then he proceeded to lose 2 of his next 3 fights. Okay? So when he lost like 3 out of his first 5 or something like that, yeah. From this inauspicious start, he proceeded to have perhaps the greatest decade in the history of the sport. Now listen carefully. For the entire decade of the 1930s, Henry Armstrong averaged over a fight per month and compiled a professional record of 103 wins, 12 losses, 7 draws. Now that's not a fight per month for 1 year. That's a fight per month for the entire decade. 10 years. This man fought once every month. Incredible. Henry Hanks started at the very bottom and took the hard road up the ranks. In the second half of the 1930s, he achieved an unprecedented level of dominance. In October 1937, he knocked out Peter Saran to capture the world featherweight title. In May 1938, he roughed up fellow legend Barney Ross to capture the welterweight title via unanimous decision, right? Now, he got featherweight and welterweight at the same time, and they are 21 pounds apart, right? Holding them simultaneously. That August, he beat Lou Ambers to add the lightweight title to his trophy case. And at that time in boxing, there were only 8 weight classes and only one world champion in each weight class. Henry Armstrong was the top dog in 3 of them, from 126 to 147, and he was defending them. And that's 21 pounds apart. Incredible. In today's boxing world, as many as 20 or more fighters at any given time hold a claim to a world title within that same 21 pounds now. Man, more than that. With the juniors and the supers and the champions in recess, I would say like 60 between 126 and 147. You can have about 60 champions, man. And Henry Armstrong held all of them in that span. Incredible. Unbelievable. And 1940 to 1949, you know who that was. The Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. What's up? Let's talk fashion. #JBT in the building. And today is Wednesday, and we ain't getting no Let's Talk Fashion this morning. Damn. I had to go look at some magazines and stuff to get. I wasn't even into fashion, so Let's Talk Fashion started that show. And then we ain't getting under there. Had to go find some magazines to look at or something, man. But he'll be back next week. Next Wednesday. He ain't getting away with that, man. Just 1 week. That's it. Then next Wednesday, have your ass back in here. But salute, Let's Talk Fashion. Yeah, next Wednesday, the 23rd, he'll be back with season number 3. Yeah. And 1 and 2 was fire. But number 3 going to be fire. Let's Talk Fashion is in the building. Salute. Yeah. Most dominant boxer in every decade. 1940 to 1949 is the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. Mm-hmm. And we ain't getting none Friday neither. No Let's Talk Fashion Friday neither, man. I don't know. This is crazy. From 1937 to 1949, Joe Louis reigned as a heavyweight champion for an unprecedented 12 years. He was perhaps even more dominant in the 1930s than he was in the 1940s. During the 30s, he knocked out all 5 men who preceded him as champion. Now, who does that? He knocked out all 5 previous champions before he got the belt. Didn't just beat them, knocked them out. Jack Sharkey, Primo Carnera, Max Baer, James Braddock, and Max Smelling. Was that 6? No, that's 5. And Max Smelling. You could also make a fair argument for Sugar Ray Robinson as the dominant fighter of the 1940s. But we'll be getting to Sugar Ray shortly, okay? But Joe Louis was the face of boxing during the 40s and one of the biggest stars in all of professional sports. He was the first American hero of any kind whose popularity transcended race. I told you about the guy, he was touring some hospitals during World War II, and this guy, his eyes had got damaged in combat, and he couldn't take the bandages off for a certain amount of time, or he would go blind. And they heard Joe Louis was at the hospital coming through. So he begged the nurse to take the bandages off, and the nurse said, "You might lose your sight." But he said, "I don't care. I just want to get one look at Joe Louis, forget my sight." So she took him off, And it was the highlight of his life, getting that look at the Brown Bomber, man. That's how popular, just a perfect example of how popular Joe Louis was. Louis went 18-0 with 15 knockouts during the 1940s. His level of competition was frequently maligned at the time, but his dominance had a lot to do with how poor everybody else looked, right? It wasn't exactly that the competition was bad. It was how bad Joe Louis made him look, okay? Now, during the hard years of the war and the early post-war boom, Few things were constant in American society, but there was one thing you could rely on. Joe Louis being the heavyweight champion of the world, okay? You can count on that. Next, told you we're going to get to Sugar Ray in a minute. 1950 to 1959, Sugar Ray Robinson. Sugar Ray Robinson is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He could have went from 40 to 50 and stopped. He would still be in there. Or he couldn't have fought in the 40, started at 50 to 59 and be in the Hall of Fame off of that decade. Bad man. But Sugar Ray Robinson, 1950 to 1959. He could have been in the 40s too. But we had Joe Louis. Now, Sugar Ray Robinson began in the 1950s as the reigning world welterweight champion. On February 14, 1951, he captured the middleweight title via round 13 TKO of Jake LaMotta in the iconic St. Valentine's Day Massacre fight. He just battered Jake, but after the fight, Jake told him, "You didn't knock me down, Sugar Ray." Jake stayed on his feet. Probably should have went down. That fight would have been stopped nowadays, like the 4th or 5th round. That was crazy. Anybody saw that, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Now, Robinson was even more dominant in the 1940s when he lost just once in 10 years. But he was still better than everybody else in the 50s, even with a 2.5-year retirement from June 1952 to January 1955. Robinson went 41-5 in the 50s. 4 of the 5 opponents who beat him were Hall of Famers, and 3 of them fell to Robinson in rematches. Yeah, the 50s was the greatest of them all for the middleweight, hands down, no doubt. One of the people that beat him in the 50s, Joey Maxim, was light heavyweight champion, and Sugar Ray was far ahead of him on the cards when he collapsed from heat exhaustion after round 13. And before Sugar Ray went down, the referee went down. It was real hot that day. Yeah, that was the only time he was ever stopped. He got stopped because of heat exhaustion. He couldn't continue after 13. Had it been 12 rounds, then he would have had the light heavyweight championship. Okay? He ended the 1950s as the middleweight champion of the world. Only 2 division champion. Could have been 3, but the heat stopped him. 1960 to 1969 is the greatest. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali. And we got most favorable, most memorable fights coming up next. Not of each decade, not the best fights, but most memorable. And you'll see if you go through it. But right now, the most dominant fighter of the 60s, Muhammad Ali. Now, the majority of Muhammad Ali's most iconic fights occurred during the 1970s. But by then, he had slowed down a step and was forced to alter his style and rely on guts and guile to win wars of attrition. But during the 1960s, Ali dominated the heavyweight division as thoroughly as anyone before him or since. He combined legitimate heavyweight size with the quickness and slickness of a man, and the combination made him nearly untouchable. He turned professional in 1960 after winning Olympic gold in Rome in the light heavyweight division. Between then and March 1967, he put together a perfect 29-0 record with 23 knockouts. In 1964, he captured the world title from the menacing Sonny Liston, but he made the Big Bear quit after 6 rounds. In 1967, Ali refused to be drafted into the military, protesting the Vietnam War. And he was denied boxing licenses, stripped of his title. But the move made him a political icon in addition to a boxing superstar. And by the time he was able to return to the sport, it was a new decade. We was into the 70s then. And the second chapter of his remarkable career was about to begin. Ali's another one, like Sugar Ray. He could have been in the Hall of Fame if he just stopped fighting in 1969 from what he did in the 60s. And he could have turned pro in 1970 and been in the Hall of Fame just from what he did in the 70s. Okay? Yeah, him or Sugar Ray Robinson. Then we get to the 1970s. You know who that is. know who that is. The Hands of Stone. Roberto Duran. Let me do that again. The Hands of Stone. Roberto Duran in the 70s, man. Not Muhammad Ali, not Foreman, not Frazier, not Norton, not Holmes. The Hands of Stone. Roberto Duran in the 70s, man. That man went through them 70s. It was crazy, man. Mike Grimm. What's up, Mike Grimm? Salute, Mike. Good to see you today. Yeah, Roberto Duran went through those 70s, man. It was just incredible. Unbelievable. You know, unbelievable. And that's when I was coming in the boxing. And I was like, wow, ain't nobody going to beat this man. Only one did it in the 70s, Esteban de Jesus, but he came back and beat him twice. That's when he was the Hands of Stone in the 70s. Let's talk about it. Roberto Duran was involved in some of boxing's greatest moments during the 1980s, a decade in which he collected world titles at welterweight, junior middleweight, and middleweight. But he entered that decade already established as an international superstar and one of the sport's top pound-for-pound fighters. During the 1970s, Roberto Duran had a dominant run to rival any fighter in the sport's history, and any that will ever come, man, like he went to those 70s. Now, he entered the 70s as an undefeated teenager, super featherweight. He was ferocious but unrefined. His manager, Carlos Aleta, procured the services of legendary trainers Ray Arcel and Freddie Brown. And under their tutelage, Duran developed slick defensive techniques to augment his relentless offense. By the end of the 1970s, a significant percentage of boxing historians regarded the Hands of Stone as the greatest fighter in the history of the lightweight division. Okay? Duran compiled a record of 71-1 with 41 knockouts for the decade. His only loss came by decision to the super tough Esteban de Jesus. Duran won their 2 rematches by stoppage. Esteban de Jesus beat him one time in the 70s, early in the 70s. Duran came back and stopped him twice. 1970, 1979, the Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran. Okay? That's not disputable. Donnie Williams in the building. Donnie Williams said, I'm Mike Tyson's favorite boxer. What's up, Donnie? Good to see you today, my brother. We're almost winding down. We're going over the dominant fighters from each decade. Then we're going to have the most memorable fights from each decade, okay? But the 80s can't be no other than the marvelous one. And you know, the Hagler, the commentators and stuff calling the fights wouldn't call them marvelous for some reason. They called Duran the Hands of Stone. They called her the Hitman. They called Ray Leonard Sugar, but they wouldn't call Marvin marvelous. And you know what he did? He officially changed his name to Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Said, now you got to call me Marvelous because that's my name, damn it. He changed his name to Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Dominant fighter from 1980 to 1989. And I told you about him and the King Carmen Monzon. From 1970 to 1987, 14 of those 17 years, either King Carlos Monzon or Marvelous Marvin Hagler was the undisputed champion, middleweight champion of the world. Only 3 years out of those 17, one of them was the undisputed middleweight champion. They ruled middleweight for 17 years. King Carlos Monzon or Marvelous Marvin Hagler, okay? And when I did the fantasy matchup between them, guess what it was? It was a draw. It was a draw. Couldn't call it. But Marvelous Marvin Hagler's run at the top of the middleweight division in the 1980s is among the most dominant reigns of any champion at any weight in the sport's history. Rivals Roberto Duran in the 70s, and they fought. After spending much of the 1970s as the sport's most avoided fighter, Hagler finally captured the middleweight crown from Alan Mitchell in 1980, stopping the Brit in London's Wembley Stadium in just 3 rounds. Over the next 6 years, Hagler would make 12 defenses with only Roberto Duran going the distance. Hagler during the 1980s seemed as invulnerable as any fighter in my lifetime. When Ray Leonard came out of retirement to beat Hagler in 1987, it was a shocking event and hotly disputed. And Ray Leonard didn't win that fight, okay? They cheated. Hagler had 17 fights in the 1980s. He won 16, lost 1 with 14 knockouts. Roberto Duran, Ray Leonard, and this other guy went the distance before he won the title. Like in 80, I forgot his name. Bruce Gans might know it, but I can't remember. Guy went the distance with Hagler in the early 80s before he beat Alan Minton. I can't remember who it was. But now we to the 90s, okay? To the 90s. I was talking to a guy yesterday, told him I'm gonna do this show. He gonna say Julio Cesar Chavez for the 80s. I said, man, are you crazy? You better leave that Kool-Aid alone. You got Hagler, Hearns, Duran, Leonard, Benitez. Julio Cesar Chavez ain't even in the top 10 for the 80s. Come on, man. He was a prospect for the beginning of it. No. I'm trying to tell me Julio. You should make Julio Cesar Chavez for the 80s. Man, if you don't get out my face with that dumbass shit, Julio Cesar Chavez. Julio Cesar Chavez, your ass out of my face. But no, man. You had Hagler, Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Alexis Aguayo, Aaron Pryor, Hector Camacho. All of them in front of Julio Cesar Chavez for the 80s. Come on, man. So let's move on to the 90s. Okay. We got a couple more, then we're going to go to the fight. Appreciate everybody rocking with me today. Hit the like button. If you ain't subscribed, subscribe. I would appreciate that. I got 1 subscriber yesterday. Trying to get to 1,000. I got him to the 800s and just stopped. I'm scared that you get subscribers from shorts, but I'm scared to make shorts. They took my monetization from me from a short. So I'm scared to make shorts. If they hadn't did that, I would have been to 1,000. Because them shorts rack up subscribers. But they made a believer out of me. Scared, say you're scared. 1990 to 1999 is Roy Jones Jr. Okay, Roy Jones Jr. Now, in this century, Roy Jones Jr. has compiled a pedestrian record of 16-7. He's been knocked out 4 times, and by second-tier talents like Danny Green and Dennis Lebedev, right? But he became so average in his last years that it's almost difficult to remember how thoroughly he dominated during the 1990s. He turned professional in 1988 after falling victim to the worst judging decision of any kind in the entire history of the Olympic year. That was made. And then in May 1993, he won the vacant IBF middleweight title by beating Bernard Hopkins. In November 1994, he moved up to super middleweight and beat James Toney for the IBF title. Good fight. He lost 1 fight during the entire decade, and that was by disqualification. He accidentally hit Montel Griffin after Griffin had taken a knee during the March 1997 fight. But he won the rematch 5 months later by a first-round knockout, okay? Now, for the decade, Jones had a record of 36 wins, 1 loss with 29 knockouts. Remember, his only loss was by disqualification. He ended the last century as the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. And then finally, we're just going to do 2000s to present would be Floyd Mayweather Jr. If you started 2000 and come to now, I can't think anybody that was any more dominant than Floyd Mayweather Jr., right? And Floyd was the most dominant fighter in the sport over the first 24 years of the century, although he's retired now, but I can't think of anybody from 2000 now that was more dominant than Floyd was during his reign, right? Now, there's room for Floyd's haters to criticize him, right? Because it probably would be more impressive if he had fought Paul Williams, Antonio Margarita, instead of briefly retiring. right? Messing around with wrestling. But obviously the fight that never happened with Manny Pacquiao, when it should have happened, will hang over his legacy, you know. But he still was dominant, more dominant than anybody else in the sport since 2000, right? He said exactly. He only had one close fight. That was Jose Luis Castillo. And he was injured in the first fight, right? And then he beat Oscar De La Hoya. He ended up beating Manny, remember? And he's handed down plenty of beatdowns in his career, especially at the lower weights when he was pretty boy. And he dominated through pure boxing acumen. He's a defensive wizard with a ring IQ that ranks among the best ever, right? So from 2000 to now, it would have to be Floyd Mayweather for me, okay? Now, let's go to the memorable fights, not best fights, the most memorable, okay, of each decade. Now we're going to start this one at 1900, I believe. Let's get that up. How's everybody today? After 3 o'clock, and I can't believe how this time goes by. It's just crazy. I told you. Then it went up in a space shuttle and the speed is up the Earth, going in and out of the atmosphere. The Earth turning faster, time going by faster than normal. And they don't know how to fix it, but they ain't gonna tell us. And my wife think I'm crazy too. But no, I think that's what really happened, man. They done speeded the Earth up. That's why time is going. This ain't normal, man. I got up at 6 o'clock and I was right. And then like 15 minutes later, it was like 10 o'clock this morning. So yeah. Boxing's most memorable fights from each decade of the past century, okay? Now, great prize fights retain a sense of immediacy and drama, even many years after they happened. Decades later, fans who were not even born at the time debate Muhammad Ali's Phantom Punch against Sonny Liston or the Jack Dempsey, Gene Tunney long count fight. Great prize fighters passed into the realm of myth as well. Now, with the Thriller in Manila, Ali and Joe Frazier became Hector and Achilles for the 20th century. Joe Louis's dramatic round 1 knockout of German Max Schmeling on the eve of World War II made the Brown Bomber an instant folk hero. Now, reducing all the great fights of the past century to one most memorable per decade list is challenging. And it's kind of subjective. But still, a lot of these fights are obvious choices. So let's start. We're going to go backwards this time, start in 2010s and go back to the past, okay? Since we just finished the 2000s. Now, 2010 to now, is Manny, Juan Manuel Marquez, Manny Pacquiao, 4, okay? 4, the last one, when Manny got slept. Okay. Yeah, Roy is from it was the story with that Melanie Queen. He's from down there with somebody you do or a friend or something like that. Melanie Queen said she knows Roy or somebody she knows Roy. I forgot how the story went. But she says, hey, Roy. Now, yeah, Juan Manuel Marquez, Manny Pacquiao, 4. Juan Manuel Marquez versus Manny Pacquiao is the most important boxing rivalry of this century. Now, the first 3 fights were razor-close affairs, with none of them yielding a clear winner. Now, the first fight was a draw, and the second was a split decision win for Manny. The third fight also went to Manny by majority decision, so it was perhaps the most criticized decision of the 3. Now, BoxRec entry lists 56 media members scoring for Marquez, 51 for Manny, and 36 for a draw. Now, it seemed reasonable to expect more of the same when the 2 legends met for a 4th time in December 2012. After 2 relatively tentative rounds, Marquez began to work Pacquiao's body and used a feinted left hook to the body to set up an overhand right that dropped Manny for the first time in their 4 fights together. I believe that was the first time for Manny's career, too. Now, Marquez continued to land hard shots in the 4th and looked to be taking control of the fight. But Manny came back strong in the 5th round, dropping Marquez with a left. Both men traded solid power shots, but Marquez ended the round with a broken nose and he was on wobbly legs. Now, round 6 was all Pacquiao until the very end. With just a second remaining, Marquez lured Pacquiao forward and landed one of the great right-hand counters in the sport's history, knocking Pacquiao out cold and giving this great rivalry its first decisive finish. Your Manny should have stopped at 3. He got knocked out. That was one of them knockouts, wife in the audience crying type of knockouts, right? I thought they killed Manny. Manny was laying over the halfway on them ropes, unmoving. Yeah, but he came back from it, you know. He had some great fights after that. Now, 2000 to 2009, Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton. Y'all probably like, what? But listen, okay. Now, Manny Pacquiao's round 2 knockout of Ricky Hatton was more spectacular, but Floyd Mayweather's earlier stoppage of the tough English star in December 2007 seems like the all-around more memorable fight. Both fighters came in undefeated, with Floyd fresh off beating Oscar De La Hoya, and Hatton having just knocked out Mayweather's toughest opponent, Jose Luis Castillo. Remember? Hatton has just knocked out Castillo. Coming into that fight, all that trouble he gave Floyd, Castillo gave Floyd. And the British fans who traveled across the pond to cheer their man played a large role in making this such a major event. At times, the MGM Grand sounded more like a soccer stadium in Manchester, England. Now, Hatton's hard and bruising style made for an entertaining fight, but Floyd's pinpoint accuracy with his lead right and check hook punished Hatton the entire fight. And Mayweather haters still complain about the way Mayweather used his elbows in close range during that fight, even now. But the fans still held his unbelievable accuracy and control of distance. Yeah, that check hook caught Hatton in that fight and put him away. Remember that? Jarrell says he fought the best when he fought Dab. You talking about Floyd, right, Jarrell? Yeah. Yeah, Roy was a bad man. Now, 1990 to 1999 is Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson 1. Not the bite fight, the first one. The bite fight was 2. Yeah. Now, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield's first 2 fights with Riddick Bowe, probably better than his round 11 stoppage of Mike Tyson. And definitely, in the Holyfield-Tyson rematch, which ended with that Tyson's bizarre bite, was certainly memorable. But the first fight between Tyson and Holyfield in 1996 was an exciting scrap and has to be counted as one of the most memorable fights in boxing history. It was a night that the mystique of Iron Mike officially crashed to earth. After coming out of prison in 1995, Tyson has stopped Peter McNeely, Buster Matthews Jr., Frank Bruno, and Bruce Seldon in rapid succession. The total number of rounds for all 4 of those fights was 8. Okay. By this time, Holyfield had been through 3 wars, with Riddick Bowe getting stopped in the 3rd fight. He had those 3 fights with Bowe by the time he fought Mike Tyson too. He lost the majority decision to former light heavyweight Michael Moorer and briefly retired with a heart condition. Now, in the mind of the average sports fan, Holyfield was destined to be destroyed by the still monstrous Tyson. Instead, Holyfield instituted a rugged brawling game plan and beat Tyson up. The memory of watching this fight is that Tyson seemed to literally shrink in the ring. By the last round, it looked like Holyfield just beating up a little guy. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if this fight could have taken place 4 years earlier. It would have unquestionably been a great fight. But I got it ended up the same. Wouldn't have been as much as memorable either, you know. But Holyfield still would have beat him. And of course, in the 80s, you know what that is. That 3-round war. 3-round fight, one fight of the year, man. 3 rounds. That was the same year where we had Combs and Spinks. We had that 12-round fight between Hector Camacho and Jose Luis Castillo. And this 3-round fight, one fight of the year over both of them. But it was worthy of it. Round 1 was round of the year. 1980-1989. Marvelous Marvin Hagler against the Hitman and the Motor City Cobra, Thomas Hearns. Both of those were his nicknames. Now, most of the biggest fights of the 1980s involved some configuration of the 4 Kings, right? You know, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Hagler, Leonard first and second price against Duran, Leonard against Hearns, Duran against Hearns, Duran against Hagler. But the sheer intensity of Hearns and Hagler's 3-round slugfest in 1985 deserves top billing of the 80s, no doubt. It's the most memorable fight, I would say, since then to now. And Sugar Ray Leonard was in retirement, right? Hagler and Hearns were clearly the 2 biggest pound-for-pound stars in the sport at that time. Hagler was in the middle of the most dominant run in middleweight history, alongside King Carlos Monzon, like I told you. Now, Hearns was less than a year removed from destroying Roberto Duran. And both men came out intent on knocking out the other as quickly as possible, right? Now, most people probably seen this fight countless times already. But if you haven't seen it, just look at it. It only take like 10 minutes. Okay, it don't take long. It was only 3 rounds, right? 9 minutes, 3 rounds. A special mention could also go to the first fight between Alexis Arguello and Aaron Pryor, which Pryor came back to win by round 14 TKO. Yeah, that was a good one too. In the 80s, not 85, in the 80s. Now, 1970, 1979, you know what that is from the 70s. It can only be one fight. This was the first fight. This is the fight I came into boxing on here. But I did. Bear with me for a minute. Oh my goodness. I went the wrong way. Yeah, this is the first fight I ever watched from beginning to end. Right here. The greatest fight of all time. And after watching this fight, when I watched some more, I was disappointed because I thought every fight was going to be like this, man. You know? They almost killed each other in that ring that night, man. The Thriller in Manila. Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. No, not Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier. Like Howard Cosell used to say. Smoking Joe Frazier. Remember Bruce Gans? Smoking Joe Frazier. Now, the first fight between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, held 4 years earlier in 1971, had far more buildup than their third and final fight in 1975. Ali had recently returned to the sport after a forced layoff of over 3 years due to his refusal to be drafted into the military during Vietnam. Frazier had risen in his place as a dominant heavyweight champion in his own right. Now, headed into the fight of the century, Ali and Frazier were both undefeated, right? And both had good claims to the title. Ali never lost it in the ring, but Frazier had won it in the ring, so yeah. And they fought it out. Nowadays, they would just walk away and just let that hang like that, like they do nowadays, man. But they fought it out in the ring. Now, the country was engulfed in political turmoil, and it hung over the fight as a subtext. Frazier standing over the down Ali in round 15 is one of the most famous boxing photos of all time. But the third fight in 1975 was the kind of epic back and forth war that Hollywood tries to emulate with movies like Rocky. Near Rocky matches up to that Thriller in Manila. They should have just showed the Thriller in Manila as the movie. The Thriller in Manila is a kind of platonic ideal for a heavyweight prize fight. Both men were a bit past their prime for the fight, but nevertheless, they dug deep and achieved near immortal greatness one more time. Angelo Dundee had to convince Ali not to quit late in the fight. Eddie Futch was forced to make Frazier quit after round 14. To protect his fighters after both eyes had finally swollen shut during the 13th round. Yeah, it was crazy. Ali was arguing with Angelo Dundee in his corner. He was trying to stop, not go back out there. Frazier was arguing with his trainer in the other corner, trying to go back out there. His trainer was trying to stop him from going back out there because he couldn't see, still trying to go back. Nowadays, that fight would have been stopped about the 10th round. The way they do nowadays, yeah, that fight would have been stopped. But for the 60s, let's move to the 60s. Most memorable fight of the 60s, Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston 2. Okay. And even now, the rematch between Sonny Liston and Muhammad Ali remains one of the most talked about fights ever. The photo of an enraged Ali standing over Liston. Well, y'all can't even see Liston. Let me unpin that so you can see Liston down there on the floor. That's an iconic picture there. It is Sonny, kind of like, but there's Sonny. Yeah. The photo of an enraged Ali standing over Liston and yelling for him to stand up is probably the most famous boxing poster in the world. A copy of it is hanging in 90% of boxing fans somewhere in the house, their office, somewhere, man. I got it hanging up in here. I got it. Whether or not Liston took a deliberate dive in May 1965 in Lewiston, Maine, or simply quit rather than risk being made a fool of again by Ali's blinding speed, it's impossible to know. But nobody, including Ali, seemed to think that Liston had been hit hard enough to put him down for a 10 count. Even the choice of venue for this fight was incredibly strange, right? It was in Lewiston, Maine, at a hockey rink. It was in a high school hockey rink, right? It's impossible to imagine a less likely location for a heavyweight title fight. And probably the only other world-class fighter to ever fight there was Joey Camacho. And that's because he was actually from Lewiston, okay? Now, less than 2,500 people were able to attend due to the limited seating at the venue. Lewiston native, Broadway star, and eventual Vegas icon Robert Golay muffed the lyrics to the Star Spangled Banner. That was, isn't that the guy that played Benson? In the end, it wasn't much of a fight. In fact, it was barely any fight at all. But however unfortunate, it provided the most enduring and iconic moment in the sport during the 1960s. Yeah, it sure did. And of course, the 1950s is Rocky Marciano, Joe Walcott 1. Rocky Marciano, Jersey Joe 1. Okay? Yeah, everybody hit that like button. Most memorable fight of the 1950s, Rocky Marciano, Jersey Joe Walcott 1. Okay? Bell's coming. Okay. In 1951, Jersey Joe Walcott had become the oldest heavyweight champion ever when he beat Ezra Charles at the age of 37. In truth, Walcott probably should have become champion back in 1947 when he lost a highly controversial split decision to Joe Louis, in which he knocked the legendary champion down twice. And Walcott said after the fight in the ring, Joe Louis told him he had won after they announced the decision. The Walcott had come up in the sport the hard way, and his record was not exactly glittering, which has led him to become seriously underrated in historical terms. He was a slick, talented boxer. He faced the brawling, awkward Rocky Marciano in his first defense in September 1952. For 12 rounds, Walcott made The Rock look like an amateur, but in round 13, Walcott looked to keep the pressure on Rob Marciano and ended up walking into one of the most famous right hands in boxing history, Marciano's dangerous Suzy Q punch. Marciano was suddenly the heavyweight champion, and his legend as a great champion artist was secure. Never lost it, retired undefeated. Only heavyweight champion to retire undefeated, Rocky Marciano and Suzy Q. Just caught Joe with Suzy Q. See that? Mm-hmm. Now, 1940s was Joe Louis and Billy Conn. Yeah, gave Joe Louis quite a fight. 1940s. This classic from 1941 came tantalizingly close to being one of the biggest upsets of all time, and seriously rewriting the entire history of the sport. Yeah. If Billy Conn would have beat Joe Louis that night, we wouldn't have those 25 straight title defenses. We wouldn't have Joe Louis as the only man to round, Joe Louis was losing. Joe Louis came from behind in round 13 to knock out his challenger, the light heavyweight champion, Billy Conn. Louis had already written his ticket as an all-time great heavyweight champion by then, having knocked out all 5 men to previously hold a title before him. Conn was a talented boxer with moxie, but a heavy underdog. The official weights for the fight were given as 199.5 pounds for Louis and 174 for Conn. Now, Conn used his quicker reflexes and faster feet to move in and out of range and outscore Louis all fight long. But after he staggered Louis in round 12, he got greedy in the 13th and attempted to go toe-to-toe with the legendary boxer. The outcome was disastrous for Conn. Knowing he needed a stoppage to win, Louis seized the opportunity he was given and hammered Conn with a right hand. Louis staggered Conn and went into killer mode. A second right hand dropped Conn, and with 2 seconds left in the 13th round, the underdog was counted out. And that tells you something. The Louis Ali fantasy match, if Billy Conn could be leading Joe Louis in 13 rounds on the cards, Ali would dog walk him, okay? Billy Conn wasn't even near Ali as far as footwork and being a boxer. Ali would dog walk Joe Louis. It just is what it is. Billy Conn was beating him. So imagine what Ali would do to him. He would box circles around him. That's how that would turn out. 1930s, Joe Louis over Max Schmeling in the round 1. This was the second fight. And this was the most important sporting event in United States history. In 1938, with World War II quickly approaching, newly crowned heavyweight champion Joe Louis faced off with former champion Max Schmeling of Germany. Now, Schmeling was a decent man who would risk his own life to help Jewish people escape the Nazis during the war, and then keep the story largely hidden for decades out of personal modesty. But in 1938, he was Hitler's favorite fighter. Yes, he was. 2 years earlier, Schmeling had fought a tactically brilliant fight against Louis, knocking him out in round 12. Hitler and the Nazi public relations machine had pointed to this as proof that the Germans were a master race. As the rematch approached, the fight became much bigger than the sport itself. It became a battle between the racist ideals of the Germans and the democratic melting pot of the United States. But you know, that's kind of funny. the racist ideals of the Germans. And look how racist the United States was then, right? And that's what the Nazis told the United States. Y'all want to call us racist? Clean up your own house, man. Black people couldn't even go in certain bathrooms, certain restaurants, drink out of certain water fountains, and they talk about how racist the Nazis was. Come on, man. The fuck out of here with that bullshit. That's bullshit. How racist the Nazis were. The United States was just as bad, man. But anyway, for the first time in history, white Americans rallied around an African-American athlete as our guy. In the fight, Lewis exploded all over Smelling and crushed him in less than a round. It was a great boxing victory, but beyond that, it was an important step toward the needed civil rights breakthroughs that would follow in the second half of the century. See that civil rights breakthroughs. The United States had no ground to criticize the Nazis because they were just as bad then, okay? Just as bad as the Nazis. And that's saying something when you to the level of the Nazis, but America was at that level then, man. It was bad for black people back then. But let's go on. 1920 to 1929. Gene Tunney versus Jack Dempsey. Okay, Gene Tunney versus Jack Dempsey. Just as the second fight between Muhammad Ali and Sonny Liston is still debated today, the rematch between Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney also continues to inspire speculation and argument. After using his jab and lateral movement to wrestle the crown from the ferocious Dempsey a year earlier, Tunney was doing more of the same for the first 6 rounds of their 1927 rematch. Then, in round 7, Dempsey connected with the big punch he'd been looking for the entire fight, flooring Tunney. But the new rule required a fighter to retreat to a neutral corner while the ref counted for 10. Yeah, this was a new rule in 1927. And rather than follow it, Dempsey continued to loom menacingly over Tunney, as was his normal habit after felling an opponent, because that's what he was used to doing. Now they think the fight, I don't think the fight was thrown. He had never been going to a neutral corner before. He used to standing right there while the referee counted. Now this violation delayed the ref's count, but the timekeeper still should have been counting, okay? So the referee messed up. There is little debate that Tunney was clearly on the canvas for longer than a count of 10. The argument is whether or not Tunney stayed down that long because he was following the ref's count or was truly unable to get up. I think because if you're down there and the referee not counting, why get up? Stay down there and get as much time as you can. So if the referee would have been counting and got the 10 when he was supposed to, Tunney might have got up like 7 or 8. Okay? But if the referee ain't counting, why get up? Now, I watched this before, and I think Tunney clearly could have got up sooner, but the referee wasn't counting, so why get up? Right? But he recovered anyway and continued to outbox Dempsey from a distance for the rest of the fight, ultimately retaining the title. He beat Dempsey twice. Because when he did get up, he wasn't hurt or anything, So yeah, he just stayed down. The referee ain't counting. Get as much time as you can. Take a rest. Take a nap. The referee not counting. What the hell are you going to get up for? Right? The 1910 to 1919, I think this is the last one. Jack Johnson versus James Jeffries, okay? Now, see, this tells you just how racist the United States was. I should get off of that, but how they was criticizing the Nazis, they wasn't no better. Now, while the reign of Joe Louis was a moment in which the United States made important progress in race relations, the country's reaction to Jack Johnson 40 years earlier was far less laudable. Boxing's first black heavyweight champion was met with shameful racist hostility by the white public. Same white public that criticized the Nazis. who recoiled in horror at the fact that a man with dark skin had claimed the title of the toughest man on the planet. Okay? And Johnson kind of went out of his way to provoke white America, too. Now, a grown man has every right to live his life the way he wants to live it. And that's all Johnson really did. But it is accurate to say that Johnson made no effort to spare the feelings of racists with his own public behavior. He taunted white opponents and dated white women, even marrying one. At the turn of the 20th century, these were unfortunately unforgivable sins for many Americans. The sporting republic became so desperate for white hope that they dragged former champion James Jeffries out of retirement. After 6 years, Jeffries had been a great champion, but by 1910, he had grown fat on his farm. Jeffries managed to get himself into something like fighting condition for this fight, but his skills had long since grown rusty. It was one of the most anticipated fights of all time, with telegraph operators sending round-by-round updates across the country. It was filmed for later showing around the world. And despite the most avid wishes of racist America, Jeffries took a sustained beating before going down in round 15 of a scheduled 45-round fight. And that film was destroyed. Okay? Yeah, that's the last one. Yeah, we don't have time to do the, what was the other one? The gutsiest performances of all time. Yeah. Right. Yeah, but the Nazis said, take care of home, America. Stay out of our business. We can show y'all some films and stuff that we got from over there in America. Yeah. And you want to talk racism. Yeah. And that's bad when the Nazis have a point. Agree with something the Nazis said, but yeah, they had a point. But yes, tomorrow is boxing in the States. Maryland, where I'm from. Yeah, we're gonna have some history of boxing in Maryland. We're gonna have some boxers from Maryland. Sugar Ray Leonard, Tank Davis, what's the other guy name? I gotta look him up. Guy won the heavyweight championship from Maryland. His son is a boxer. His son was supposed to fight Jake Paul, remember? What's his name? Might have put it in there. His son was supposed to fight Jake Paul. I gotta Google it. Yeah, but that's tomorrow. And then Friday is the life and career of Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. This man's name is on the tip of my tongue. But he'll be a part of the show tomorrow. Boxing in the States, Maryland. I messed my little map up. I got to do that over. I had it perfect. Heavyweight champion from Maryland. Oh, it just flashed across my brain. Damn. Remember his son was getting ready to fight Jake Paul, but Jake backed out. Put it in the chat. Is it in there? Put it in there. Put it in there, BN Boxing News, somebody. There it is. Jarrell got it. Hakeem Rockman. Bruce Gans got it too. Right. Hakeem Rockman. That was him. Yeah. That was him. Unc Dre Fine is in the building. What's up, Unc Dre? Good to see you. Haven't seen Dre in a minute. Yeah. Yeah, that's it, Rockman. Right. He's from Maryland. He'll be a part of tomorrow's show. Rockman, Tank Davis, the monster from Baltimore, Sugar Ray Leonard, Kenny Ellis's daughter, Maya Ellis, rising young female star in the sport. I'd like to see her and Sky Nicholson one day. I don't know exactly what weight class Maya is at right now. But yeah, that's a good thing. Remember that fight for the future. Maya Ellis and Sky Nicholson one day. Who else from Maryland? Cass Sports, Street Fighter back in the day. No, but seriously, Yeah, a lot of those guys up there, Calvin and Kenny got a pretty good fighters tomorrow. It's young guys. Tank ain't gonna be the last one. They got some guys just ain't got to that level yet, but they got some killers up there, man. I'm telling you. Yeah. We will be seeing them. Yeah, but Hassan Rockman, that was the name I was looking for, yeah. He actually had the title one time, didn't he? Wendell Bailey. Oh, yeah, Bruce Gass says Wendell Bailey. Wendell Bailey, yeah. Right. I'm going to write that down right now. Wendell Bailey. No, we're going to find out. And then Friday is Pernell Whitaker. We're going to talk about Pernell. Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea Whitaker. Yeah. Will be the profile Friday. And then we got Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu is back in the ring this weekend. Yeah. And some of these gutsiest performances, I'll just tell you who they were since we ain't got time. We'll do the show another day. But let's look at them real quick. We had the one we talked about earlier. Marquez Pacquiao won. I think Marquez went down. No, that was 4 we talked about. But Marquez went down 4 times in this fight and got up to fight to a draw. I thought he won it, but he got up. And then we had the slugfest, man. Just fans. Every round was fan friendly. Bruce Gass, remember this one? Holmes and Norton. That was just a great fight. This was for the WBC championship. This was for the 4th WBC champion. Holmes became the 4th WBC champion in 4 months, and when he won this fight, this was a slug. Fan friendly, man. Back in them 70s, one of the best fights of the 70s. And that's saying something. One of the best fights of the 70s, man. Yeah, it was. And then Michael. Oh, Grace says Michael. Okay. This one was a great fight. We're gonna have this show another day. Some of the gutsiest performances of all time. Conor Benn versus Gerald McClellan was another good one. We was gonna talk about it. There they go. Then we had Jake LaMotta, Lawrence Thill. Jake had a lot of gutsy performances. Jake would give up 10 punches just to get one. Okay? Jake would stand in front of his man, bob and weave, and get hit like 10 times just to get one of his in. Jake was a tough man. Only stopped once in his career, and guess what? The one time Jake got stopped was a thrown fight. He went down on purpose. Yeah. The only time Jake ever went down in his career, he went down on purpose. Was it Billy Conn? What? No. Billy Conn was heavyweight. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, the one time he went down in his career, he went down on purpose. And he testified under oath to Congress that he drew the fight. So yeah, he ain't lying. Yeah, Jake was a very gutsy fighter, Jake LaMotta. Bad man, though. In the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo was another great one. There they go. It's Corrales on the right, Castillo on the left. Castillo known for his 2 fights with Floyd Money Mayweather. We had Archie Moore and Yvonne Durrell. I guess I'm probably saying his name wrong, but there they go anyway. The Mongoose. I think he was the old Mongoose by that point. Yeah. He fought so long, he went from the Mongoose to the old Mongoose. Took Archie Moore 16 years to get a title shot. But when he got it, he kept it for 10 years because Archie said, I'm not losing this title because I might not get another shot. The man was 23 when he turned professional. He didn't get his first title shot until he was 39. Almost 40 years old, man. But he won it. And he kept it for 10 years. Archie was like, nobody's getting this title. It took me too long to get this. Yeah. The old Mongoose. He was the Mongoose, but then they started saying, Archie, you've been fighting like 25 years. You're going to start calling you the old Mongoose. Yeah. Bruce says, only man to knock Jake LaMotta down. Danny Nautico, that's him, Bruce Gass. Yes. Danny Nautico. Thank you, Bruce Gas. Appreciate that. Yeah, Danny Nautico. That was him. Only man. Jake was a tough man. I'm telling you, man. Jake LaMotta. In the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Now that when he fought Sugar Ray 6 times and Sugar Ray won 5 out of 6, that is very misleading. Because anybody that don't know might say, well, Sugar Ray dominated him. No, it wasn't like that. Jake, I thought it should have been 3-3. Jake won the second fight, I think, was the one they gave to him. But I thought he won the third and the fifth too. I done watched all of them numerous times. I think it should be 3-3. So that's 5 out of 6 to Sugar Ray is very misleading, man. Very misleading. It was not dominated by Sugar Ray at all. Okay. Jake had his moments in all them fights. And I thought it should be 3-3, man. You know? I watched all of them plenty of times. Yeah. Jake did his thing in them. I thought he won 3 of them. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Gaddy and Ward. You talk about gutsy performances. Gaddy told Ward after one of the fights that I know what it's like to fight myself now. You know, because no backup in neither one of them, man. Both of them guys just kept coming, man. You talk about fan friendly. Woo. That's the textbook definition of fan friendly. You put fan friendly in the dictionary, put that picture right there. Fan friendly. All of them fights. What was it? 3 or 4? 3? Was it a trilogy? Yeah. Then we had Sam McVeigh and Joe Jeanette. That's so old I couldn't find a picture of them together, but there's Joe Jeanette. There's Sam McVeigh. And there's Joe Jeanette. We're going to talk about these fights on another show. Okay. These were some of the gutsiest performances of all time. But didn't have time to get into them. But we're going to get into them one day. At the end of a show when we have time. Mm-hmm. I might add some more with them and just do an entire show on it. About 20 gutsy performances. I didn't know this show was going to go as long as it did, but it did. So. But I appreciate everybody for rocking with me once again. Always a pleasure to see the regulars in here, you know. I got like 7 to 10 regulars. And I wouldn't trade them for one of them big 100 people chats. Because my people are knowledgeable, respectable people, know the sport. And I love it, man, you know? Yep. I wouldn't trade it for those people with 80, 90 in there. I keep my little 7 to 10. I'm happy. And tomorrow is, what is tomorrow? Damn, I forgot. Oh, Boxing in the States, Maryland. Right. How can I forget that? I'm in Maryland right now. Damn. Yeah, Boxing in the States, Maryland. And every Thursday we do it. We're halfway now. We went halfway when we got past L, right? Louisiana. So we just do every Thursday. We going through the alphabet each state, and we just do a little history in the state, some other significant events that I can find in the state, and just look at some boxes from, not every boxer from the state, but just like a group of like 10 to 15 boxers from the state, and do a little short profile on them. That's all. That's tomorrow. And then remember, VP, defensive genius. But I call him second best because I give the best defensive fighter to Willie Pett. Yeah. Willie Pett. Yeah, he won a round without throwing a punch. And the guy, he was fighting through plenty of punches, but he couldn't hit Willie. Willie just dodged around, run the ground on ring generalship. And he told the reporters at the ringside, watch this, I'm going to win this round without throwing a punch. And he went in there and did it. So, yeah. But not just because of that fight, I give him the best defense. Looking at his entire career, I give him that, man. Yeah. In the National Boxing Hall of Fame. We did a profile on Willie before, yeah. Willie Pett. Bad man. 4 fights with Sandy Sadler. I saw him and Sandy Sadler together late because they became great friends after that. Now, they had a nasty rivalry when they fight. Their 4th fight was one of the dirtiest fights ever. Both of them went down numerous times. One time they was wrapped up. They took the referee down with them. Both of them got suspended and fined after the fight, but they became best of friends. And after their careers, they went around doing exhibitions together. And I saw Sandy and Willie together late in life. And Sandy was really out of it, man. You know, he was almost at the level of Ali with that what they call it, dementia pugilistic, whatever they call it. He could barely talk, and you know, he was like Willie was talking, and somebody asked Sandy, he would like whisper to Willie, and Willie would give his answer for him because Sandy couldn't even hardly communicate, man. He's the first. I've seen a lot of boxers suffering from that, but he's the only other one I've seen almost on the level of Ali, man, when late in life. I guess they was both about 60s then. Yeah, Sandy was in bad shape, man. Yeah, he had this, you know, was whispering to Willie, and Willie was giving his answers and stuff to Sandy. But yeah, man. But yeah, that's boxing. You know, the brain is in the head, and you're getting that pounding. The brain ain't meant to be pounded on like that. You know, so yeah. But that's what happens. But you know, we love it. It's our sport. Them guys them men and women get in there and do it to our entertainment. They're getting paid well too, but you know, they put it all on the line, man. That's why I never call a fighter trash. Now I might call one C-level, like George Kambosos or somebody, but I'm not gonna call him trash. You know, no fighter is trash, man. You go up the steps and get in that ring, man. You got my respect, okay? But I appreciate everybody rocking with me today. We got boxing in the States tomorrow, Maryland. It's really Maryland. Everybody will call it Maryland, but it's supposed to be Maryland, okay? You know, I know the history. I'm from Maryland. You know I know the history. I'm a history person. Yeah. And who was in the building today? We had man, where's my paper right there? It is. Donnie Williams, Mike Rim, Let's Talk Fashion. Let's Talk Fashion will be back. It wasn't on today, but it'll be back next Wednesday on the 23rd. Okay? We will make sure he's back. Trust me. Okay, if I go up there in New York and make him do it, he'll be back next Wednesday. Be in boxing news. The Real Hattie. Just Do Boxing. Cannabis Education and Entertainment TV. Appreciate you, Bruce Gas. When Bruce Gas in here, man. If I need something answered from the history back then, Bruce Gas will come up with it. Trump in the building. Melanin Queen 27 in the building today. Real Prison Talk with Tommy. Mike Mazik in the building. Appreciate you, Mike Mazik. Al Booger and Miss Katz. Appreciate everybody for rocking with me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. We will be back tomorrow because, you know, if it's Monday through Friday at 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian bringing you all that boxing history. Just do boxing straight ahead. I am Cass Sports, the Boxtorian. Everybody have a great day.